This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
And I'm Heather Branch here with John Hicks, financial advisor, founder of J. Hagan Capital, and a man on a mission to help you better understand this nest egg, this precious gem of yours that you have worked so hard to save and nurture and grow. And now what the heck are you supposed to do with it? Suddenly somebody hands you a $3 million check and you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do with that? No, sir. John is here.
Bitcoin.
Don't say things. Don't say it.
No.
That's not funny.
No, don't. Please don't.
But there are options, there are opportunities, there are things to be done. You are here to help us understand what those things are. Because that's the thing, is that the further we get into this world, into this 21st century, it's just like the more opportunities there. You know what it's kind of like? It's like Netflix. You know how we all have like Amazon Prime and Netflix and Disney Plus and all these things?
Sure.
And I feel now more than ever, I can't find anything to watch. And I blame it on the fact that there's so much out there. It's overwhelming. I feel like the same can be said for the financial industry. There is so much out there.
Without question. There are more individual mutual funds and exchange traded funds than there are all the stocks in the world. There are like 4 times more funds
insane.
Of things than there are actual stocks. The craziest thing that I've recognized over the years is that there is no such thing as a perfect investment, not one.
Right.
Because every individual is a little bit different. Every investment has a different time parameter, a different horizon, a different need, a different whatever. The only thing we want to make sure is that we don't own a bunch of absolute losers.
Right.
Really?
Right.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Right.
It's not making the perfect choice. It's not making the perfect choice. It's consistently not making dumb choices.
Got it.
Dumb choices are what blow us up. And I can't tell you how many people are putting themselves in a place where I'm not going to call them dumb, but they're not wisely
uneducated.
thought.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's unfortunately like, well, John, this one stock's been so good to me that I'm just going to keep holding it, even if it's 92% of their net worth. I ran into this gentleman a few weeks ago, and I don't blame him. He owned something for the last 25 years. If you look at the actual rate of return, he's averaged around 7.7, 7.8% on the holding.
Okay.
So is that good? Yes, it's great. But it's so good to him is really just because he's tied that into him.
Yeah.
When you look at what it's going to do over the next 10 years, no one knows. But 7.7%. My question was, without having to have all of your eggs in one basket, if you had just owned any S&P 500 fund, make the cheapest one, Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, didn't matter.
Yeah.
You would have almost had 60% more returns.
You're kidding.
No, just simple stuff. And if you wanted to be balanced, where you had 50% in a money market over that entire time and 50% in the S&P 500, he actually would have averaged 10% more overall than what he had in that one company, with diversification and hopefully a feeling that he wasn't going to screw it up, right?
Yeah.
But, this gentleman, he wanted to hold true to his guns, so that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call that a wise decision.
Right.
Certainly a decision, probably not a wise one.
Working to help you make wiser decisions. This is what John and his team are here to help you do. If you have questions, give us a call, 502-317-0840. That's 502-317-0840. Okay, so seeking to understand maybe better choices. Because didn't we talk about how Warren Buffett said, like, the reason he credits all of his success and all of his wealth is to having made like 10 good choices in his entire life? He fully admits to many, many errors, but it was like the 10 good ones that have gotten him to this place.
Oh, without question. And the craziest thing about Buffett, and most people don't recognize this, so I think it was the beginning of last month, I was reading an article.
Yeah.
So Buffett's worth roughly $140 billion, okay? $140 billion. Since the time he was 65, he's made $137 billion of that since the age of 65. Okay. I want you to think about that just for one quick second. If you're worth $140 billion and now he's like 93, 94. So, he's older, right? But if you look at that, he's made $137 billion of the $140 billion he's worth since age 65. That to me is somewhat alarming. It's a little bit hard to comprehend, but that is the value of compound interest. That's why Einstein called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world.
Wow.
And the sad truth is it also works negatively, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a loss and then you pull money out of that account, you're actually exacerbating that loss. That's basically leveraging to the downside. You can lose money very quickly, which is why earning money, accumulating money, growing money is one thing. But as soon as we start pulling money out, if we have a loss on an account that we've pulled money from, it can absolutely put salt in that wound and make an infection and cause us to not be able to retire. So many things about what Warren Buffett has said, I find a lot of honesty in. I think it's great. And the other thing is like, man, how much of that was luck? How much of it was skill? But again, his whole comment previously was, it's not about making great decisions.
It's about making
consistently not making disastrous ones.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what it comes down to.
Patience is a virtue. And also for anybody who is approaching their early 60s, maybe even your late 50s, and you're thinking to yourself, oh no, now what? Just take note about the number, the age we just shared about Warren Buffett and how much he has made after the age of 65.
Oh, sure.
Almost like, was it like 97% of his money billion-dollar wealth?
So many people have unbelievable careers and unbelievable legacies after retirement age.
I know.
Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison and was not elected until age 78. I mean, when you think about some of these things and just kind of put it in perspective, it's kind of like mind-numbing to me. People always forget that who was the astronaut, John Glenn. Mm-hmm. John Glenn was an astronaut. He ended up being in public service for a long period of time, went back to be an astronaut on Discovery in the 1990s at age 77. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, you think about some of these people. I explore this crap all the time. This is what I find is so enthralling. It's like, who reinvented themselves or who did a remarkable things after, because I'm getting closer to 50.
Sure.
You know, from their 45 to 50, from 50 plus, from 55. Like, I'm interested in finding out what was their mindset.
Yeah.
How did they choose to do that? Were they just always that talented? They just finally had the time? What made them do it? And almost across the board comes down to one word.
Yeah.
Passion.
Well, I was about to say, I think it's just the mindset of you're not done yet.
Absolutely.
You are not done yet.
Sometimes it's the first time they've had the opportunity with some form of financial independence, right? So that's really
they have that freedom at their back, that wind at their back that gives them this confidence in this next space. Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't have to worry about a job. So just working for money should become kind of irrelevant to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. What can you do at that time that's more productive for your passions, right?
Yep.
That's really what it comes down to. So I almost want to replace most of the times that we say the word retirement with just whatever you want to do when you want to do it, because you're financially independent.
Yeah.
You are not requiring to have that job to sustain the things you want to do. That's really what it is. Because I know I talk to people all the time, especially gentlemen. They're like, John, I'm never going to retire. I'm like, I know. What a terrible use of a word. We shouldn't say retire. It's like you're being sent out to pasture. Mm-hmm. That's not the case at all. It's like, now that you can do, because you've saved $5 million, $9 million, $23 million, now that you've saved this money, what do you want to do with your time? Mm-hmm. Do you really want to sit in that cubicle? Do you really want to have that corner suite and the sea-level suite in that building? Do you really enjoy that anymore? Is that what floats your boat?
Right.
Or would you really rather get a boat and learn how to be a regatta sailor, with Larry Ellison, who owns Oracle, right? Mm-hmm. I think Larry Ellison recently bought one of the Hawaiian islands, the one that the Dole pineapple people used to own. Yeah, because Oracle. So obviously he's not sitting around in the corner office at Oracle too much.
Yeah,
he's sailing his yacht or his regatta yacht around whatever he now owns in Hawaii.
Well, we might not be buying an island off of Hawaii.
He just gets to hum the Moana soundtrack every day.
Sure.
I mean, I would consider that.
Right. No, there's not.
Although
that's
I
not
get
a problem.
seasick,
Listen,
other than that, I think
we'll get you some Dramamine. You'll be okay. Working to help you find more financial confidence. Of course, what John and his team at J. Hagan Capital are here to help you with. If you'd like to give us a call, 502-317-0840 is our number. That's 502-317-0840. Let's talk about this financial confidence, though, so many of us want to have at our backs as we go into this next phase of our life, because thinking about the markets as the Fed starts cutting interest rates, many say they're just getting started. And wealth manager Mark Newton was telling Fox Business that if the Fed's future cuts are more drastic, the market could feel a correction. Here's what he was saying.
Historically, it's been 2001, 2007 when the Fed cuts more than 25 basis points, and it's been problematic to stocks. So, there is about 200 basis points of cuts right now priced in between now and next July, which is an extraordinary amount right now. But we are an election year, of course, and you really want to be cognizant of that. The market's very ready for this of now. The Fed does not want to disappoint the market.
The Fed doesn't want to disappoint, but he said 2001 and 2007, John. So let's talk about where somebody is, maybe early retirement, getting ready to retire, thinking that they should be taking some profits off the table, rebalancing portfolios. Is there uncertain times right in front of us? What are you recommending to folks?
I think it's very smart, if you've been in the market for the past 10 years, to really take a true evaluation of what fixed income's paying and what stocks are paying, right? So, if you look at the last 10 years, the market's done really well. It's like a little bit better than 12%, across the board for a diversified, S&P type investment. If you were in the NASDAQ, it even did better. And that's tech companies, right? So when you look at that historically, now that we may be having Fed cuts and we look at where things are priced, there is a very good chance we could see a 15 to 30% downturn, not because things are bad, because if you came down 15 to 30%, that would be a very appropriate price for things if we expect the market to grow in the future. Right. So I love downturns, and that's not because I like people losing money. I think that's a horrible thing. But I like downturns because they finally let the dust settle. A rising tide lifts all ships. And so we've had the market moving up. Things have been generally moving up. But now there's a bunch of stuff out there that I think is just priced a little wrong. And so we're not seeing very many discounts. We're not seeing very many value plays. And I think a downturn of 15 to 30% would make some sense. And it's very interesting. That's kind of what Mark was just saying a second ago. Not that there's going to be a downturn, but say, hey, we may not have a ton of headwinds, but we're kind of at a place to where if the Fed's going to be doing this, it kind of leads to a little bit of havoc in the markets. Because what happened in 21? Well, it led to 22. What happened in 2022? Well, stocks were down about 19%. Bonds were down about 19%. So if you had a balanced portfolio, you were down 20-ish%. That's a huge downturn, especially if you're thinking about retirement, thinking that whatever you have in those accounts, what if you didn't have that much? What if it went down for a year, 15, 20%, and you didn't get that money back for 2 years after that? See, that's where we start playing that mental warfare, unfortunately, that psychological game of, man, I used to have $1 million. Now I've only got 800,000, and now I got to pull money out. I can't pull 50 grand a year or 5% from $1 million, because if I pull 5% out of 800,000, I only get $40,000 a year. And all of a sudden that starts to change how we think. So if you're at a point where you're thinking, hey, I might retire in the next 3 to 5 years, really think about it. If you can still get roughly 5 to 7% insured against loss right now, which ladies and gentlemen, you can. You get 5% in money markets. You can get banks and insurance companies to insure fixed assets to give you up to 7% right now today. That means that your money at 7% doubles in roughly a decade. That is pretty dang good. We have not seen those type of rates since 1998, 99. Seriously. So when you think about that, is that good? Yeah. So to take a little money off the table to consider doing something on the fixed side makes some sense. Now, on the risk side, does that mean that I want you to, put your head under the sand? No. I just want you to think, hey, are you convicted to that portion of your portfolio? So if we do have a 15 to 30% correction and it lasts 3 or 4 years, you still are going to be able to sustain it long enough to wait for it to get back. Okay. So that is part number 2. Now, if you can handle all that, awesome. Because if you can handle that, then you can figure out how much income you can pull from the portfolio, because that's all that matters. So whether it goes up or down, or whether you go safe or risky, does not make one single hill of beans to me. What matters is how are you going to generate the income when you're no longer working, and where's it going to come from? Because if you pull it from an asset that's lost money, you're going to be hurting. So you really want to make sure that you can pull that income from a non-losing position. So if you're in that position now and you're thinking about that, give our team a call and just let them know what you're thinking. So you just want a second opinion on your risk tolerance. Believe me, our team is great. We have tax attorneys and CPAs in the office that can help you understand, hey, if you do it this way, there's maybe a tax benefit too, or a tax structure we can utilize to add more final dollars to your income without even changing your investments. It can make a big difference.
There's been a lot of talk about what's going to happen when rate cuts start and Q4 volatility and the election. And if you're wondering, do you need a rebalance? Let's take a look at that. RetirementSolutionShow.com is where you can start the conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital. Of course, we have links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there. Or again, it's RetirementSolutionShow.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting RetirementSolutionRadio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Inc. is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. It does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital. National license number 1882794.